2 days ago, the Plastiki was cruising along in very, very light wind. I just got off watch with Vern and Mr. T, and we were probably about 2 hours into our 3 hours of sleep. And I remember being woken up by Mr. T shouting, "All hands on deck."
I guess it was technically a storm. 12 knots away from being a hurricane. I guess a hurricane happens at 72 knots, and we were at 60 knots, which I had no idea or no concept of what 60 knots was, because the most wind we'd had before was probably 30 knots. So we basically doubled what we'd ever dealt with.
Something we always been trying to avoid. Any boat, you try and avoid major storms if you can. This boat especially, for the amount of flex and the unknown factor that's still with the boat.
I've always been apprehensive of the Tasman Sea and what we were going to face. And this was kind of like my own worst nightmare coming to fruition.
The main problem with was the fact that it wasn't forecasted. So we were sailing along pretty much like we are right now on starboard jibe. We were struggling to maintain any apparent wind. And all of a sudden the wind shifted from through 100 degrees. So it came round to the other side of the boat and it creased to 60 knots. And like that, it was incredibly fast.
And yeah, it picked up so fast. I was really excited. I thought it was great. You know, I've been waiting for this moment, since we set off.
I put my life jacket on. I looked around down the front of the boat and I looked up at the rig, and it was almost kind of at this 90-degree angle.
So we're trying to get down the headsail first, and just pulling the headsail in was such hard work. In fact, we lost two of the hanks on the top, and all of a sudden the headsail's streaming aft.
And we came out here and we wrestled this headsail like I'd never wrestled anything in my life. It was like hanging on to the cape of a flying bear. I mean, it was nuts.
The wind was howling and the waves were just picking up. And it all happened in a really, really short space of time. We went from being in reasonable winds to being in really intense conditions.
And then got pounded for the next 8 hours by some of the biggest waves you're probably likely to see.
It was the first time I really felt the power of the sea right in my face.
It's so cool, to be in those sorts of situations when you're just at the mercy of something which is so greater than yourself. And the only thing you've got to keep you safe is this crazy boat that we built. And it's great to see her perform in those conditions, and she just rose up like a cork and then crashed down the other side.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad, and then I spoke to Jo sort of, the next day or the following morning or something, and she said, "Oh, it's the closest we've ever got to losing the mast, and we nearly bust all the sails and buckled the mast in two." So I don't know, maybe I was just sort of off in my own world, tripping out on the excitement.